Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiv Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiv Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopikante Radha Kante Namostute Tapt Kanchan Gorangi Radhe Vrindaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. बोलो श्री राधे गोलोकानंद भगवान की जय. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hello, Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, Mr. Soham. How are you?
Hare Krishna. Good.
Hare Krishna, very nice to see you. All right. So, kal, I think we read the slok 7 in Adhyay 6, Cantos 2. Yeah. So, इसमें जैसा कि अपन we have been reading, Lord Brahma जी, Lord Narad जी को describe कर रहे हैं विराट स्वरूप कि कैसे भगवान का विराट स्वरूप है, and what is the cause behind all this creation, and who is the ultimate cause of all the causes, right? Sarva Karan Karanam, we saw that. And Lord Brahma ji is continuously describing this whole Virat Swarup. And we saw how, and yesterday we read this, right? Like Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, right? So 3 loks, like 3 loks jo hum log jo bolte hain, all these 14 loks are essentially the loks below Bhulok, right? Prithvi lok ke niche. फिर उधर लोग बीच के लोग and then upper loks. So Bhur, then Bhuva के ऊपर and then Swa. So and then Swa के ऊपर Brahmalok, right? So there are 14 loks. I think we remember some of the names, and that we'll talk about when we do the quiz of Cantos 2, right? So, but the important point is what is being mentioned in this is the forward steps of the Lord, the lotus feet of the Lord are the shelter. Shelter for what? For upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for all that we need. So all the planets, everything else we need is all can take shelter, are the shelter in the forward steps of the Lord. That's what is written. Haresh Charan Ashpadam. Yeah, and his lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds of fear. That is the most important aspect. And as we read the purport 2, and actually just let's read this quickly one more time. It's very important. Soham?
For absolute protection from all sorts of fear, as well as for all our needs of life, we must take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, not only in this planet but also in the upper, lower, and heavenly planet. This absolute dependence on the lotus feet of the Lord is called pure devotional service, and it is directly hinted at within this passage. No one should have any kind of doubt in this matter. Hare
Krishna. Thank you, Soham. So, what is important here, like irrespective of which planet we are in, we may be in upper planet, lower planet, or heavenly planets. We may do some good karmas, we may be self-realized, we can go to the upper loks and Dev-lok, maybe Svalok, right? But it doesn't matter where we are. The important thing is the absolute dependence on the lotus feet of the Lord should be there, and that is the pure devotional service. And what we are doing right now is part of our devotional service, that is reading Srimad Bhagvatam, which is Srimad Bhagvatam. The meaning is the stories, the leelas of Bhagwan. Bhagwan's leela is what we are doing, and that's the absolute satsang. So we'll continue to read from here. Shlok 8. Anilji.
Apam virasya sargasya parjanyasya prajapate punsa shishnu upastatstu prajatyananda nirvatre. From the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rains, and the procreators. His genitals are the cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? So continues to describe, Lord Brahma continues to describe the Virat Sharup based on the all 14 laws. Next, Ajay.
Payurvirmasya mitrasya parimochasa narad hinsaya hinsaya nirmeti nirpasya gudam smita. O Narad, the evacuating outlets of universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc.
Krishna. So right, like, so how you see is like how this has been described from the Lord. Everything originates from the Lord. Whether it's a Satogun, Tamogun, or Rajogun, all kind of things, right? We saw Mahatatu and then the material world. What Lord Brahma is describing to Devrishi Narad, and same thing being described from Sukhdev Goswamiji to Parikshit Maharaj, is that everything ultimately originates from the Lord. Okay, and here what we are seeing is the Virat Sharup. Rinaji?
पराभूतेर धर्मस्य तमश्चापि पश्चिमः आयो नदनदीना च गोत्राणामस्ति संहति. The back of the Lord is the place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? So how the everything is being described. And the most important thing is, so, we also read this, is that everything originates from the Lord. So everything is in the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, but still Supreme Lord is independent, right? So मैं सब में हूँ लेकिन सब मुझ में है लेकिन मैं किसी में नहीं, right? We have been hearing this again and again, and sometimes it's not very easy to understand, right? But if we think about it, right, like if you look at the sky, you see all the stars in the sky, right? So all the stars are in the sky, but the sky is not in the star, right? I think that's the way to understand how the Lord Sri Krishna, everything originates from there, but he is still independent of this material world, because this is material world and there is a spiritual world beyond this. That's what we have been reading, right? Tarun?
Avyakta rasa sindhunam bhutanam nidhanasya cha uddaram viditam pumso hrudayam manasa padam. The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of living beings. Thus it is known by the intelligent class of men. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? So his heart is the abode of the subtle material bodies of the living beings. So it says Hridayam Manasah Padam. We'll just read just this one. Important aspect is described here actually. Shivam? Shivam, you're on mute.
Sorry, since the living entities are never destroyed, the annihilation of the material world does not annihilate the existence of the living entities. But until liberation is attained, one has to accept one material body after another, again and again. The human life is meant for making a solution to this repeated change of bodies and thereby attaining a place in the spiritual sky, where everything is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. In other words, the subtle forms of the living entities take place in the heart of the Supreme Being, and such the forms take tangible shape at the time of creation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? So, we are trying to read the important aspects from the purport, right? So that we can continue reading. Is that good? Like we read some of the purports, right? Because that describe the real essence of that particular shlok, right? And in this case, it's pretty clearly mentioned that until liberation, what happens, and we know this, one has to accept one material body after another. Yeah, again and again. But what is more important is the human life is meant to making a solution to this repeated change of bodies, right? And that's what we have been reading. This is the human life, which is so important. It is really meant not for all these just worldly pleasures. All that is fine, but the real important goal is solution to this repeated change of bodies. And what happens? How the solution is really attaining a place in the spiritual sky, Vaikuntha, with beyond these 14 locks. Once we do that, everything is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Sachidanand. Right? Every time we search behind happiness, we want to be happy, all that. But really, the place is the spiritual sky, which is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Yeah. Sachin?
धर्मस्य मम तुभ्यं च कुमाराणां भवस्य च विज्ञानस्य च सत्वस्य परस्यात्मा परायणम्. Also, the consciousness of that great personality is the abode of religious principles, mine, yours, and those of the four bachelors, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanatakumara, and Sanandana. That consciousness is also the abode of truth and transcendental knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, right? So where has this consciousness and the whole transcendental knowledge has come from, and what is the abode of that, right? That is the place. Okay, that is the consciousness of none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shiksha Prabhu. शिक्षा प्रभु पढ़ेंगे आप म्यूट पे
अभी हुआ अहम भवान भवश्च त इमे मुनयो अग्रजः सुरासुर नरा नगाः खगा मृग सरीसृपः गंधर्व
Can you hear me?
Not for a second. आवाज बीच में रुक गई थी.
प्रभु आपकी आवाज आ रही है. वापस से यहाँ से अभी आ रही है.
अभी आ रही है.
वापस.
हाँ. गंधर्व अप्सरो यक्षा रक्षो भूत गणो रगः. अभी ठीक है. आवाज ठीक है मेरा?
हाँ, आवाज ठीक है. हाँ.
पशवः पितरः सिद्धा विद्याचारणा द्रुमः अन्ये च विविधा जीवा जल अस्थना नभ औकशः ग्रहाक्ष केतवस्तरास्तडितः स्तन्यायि तन्वः सर्वं पुरुष एविदं भूतं भव्यं भवच्च यतः तनेदमावृतं विश्वं तिष्ठति। यहाँ मेरा कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है, आप लोग पढ़िए उधर से।
हाँ ठीक है। हाँ सोहम।
Beginning from the me, Brahma, Ram, and Bhava, all the great sages who were born before, the demigods, the demons, the human beings, the birds.
Wait. Someone, can we all mute our mics?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yes, somebody's voice is echoing.
Okay, continue, Sean. Let's see.
The human beings, the birds, the beasts, as well as the reptiles, etc., and all phenomenal manifestations of the universes, namely the planets, stars, asteroids, luminaries, lightning, thunder, and the inhabitants of the different planetary systems, namely the Gandharvas, Apsaras, Yakshas, Rakas, Bhutaganas, Uragas, Pasu, Pitas, Siddhas, Vidyaras, Karanas, and all other different varieties of living entities, including the bird, beasts, trees, and everything that are all covered by the universal form of the Lord at all times, namely past, present, and future. Although he is transcendental to all, from eternally existing in a form not exceeding in 9 inches. Hare
Krishna. Right. So this, I mean, Brahmaji is telling this to Narada, right? Aham bha ana. Like from me, aham is from me, Brahma down to you, which is Dev Rishi Narada, and Bhava, like Bhava is Lord Shiva. So all the great sages who were born before you, everyone, these are all phenomenal manifestations of these universes, are all none other than, are all covered by the universal form of the Lord at all times. Yeah. And again, I think this is a very important purport. So let's try to read this. Yeah. Shivam.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his partial representation, measuring not more than 9 inches as Supersoul, expands by his potency in the shape of the universal form, which includes everything manifested in different varieties of organic and inorganic materials. The materialities of the universe are therefore not different from the Lord, just as golden ornaments of different shapes and forms are non-different from the original stock reserve of gold. In other words, the Lord is the supreme person who controls everything within the creation, and he remains supreme separate identity, distinct from all manifested material creation. In Bhagavad-Gita, he is therefore said to be Yogeshvara. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, right? So two very important points. One is the 9 inches as a super soul. You know, the size of the soul, super soul is given. Right. The other, the most important thing is that, so, and then he manifests as a Virat Sharup from there. And, you know, but again, he still remains the supreme separate identity, distinct from all manifested material creation, like something we just talked about, right? So, and that's why it's called Yogeshwar. Tarun, will you read?
Everything rests on the potency of Lord Sri Krishna, and still the Lord is different from and transcendental to all such entities. In the Vedic Purusha Sukta of the Rig Mantra, this is also confirmed. This philosophical truth of simultaneous oneness and difference was propounded by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is known as asintya bedam vedva veda veda tattva. Brahma, Narada, and all others are simultaneously one with the Lord and different from the Supreme Lord. We are all one with Him, just as the gold ornaments are one in quality with the stock gold, but the individual gold ornament is never equal in quantity with the stock gold. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Sachin?
The stock gold is never exhausted, even if there are innumerable ornaments emanating from the stock, because the stock is Purnam, complete. Even if Purnam is deducted from the Purnam, still the supreme Purnam remains the same Purnam. This fact is inconceivable to our present imperfect senses. Lord Chaitanya therefore defined his theory of philosophy as achintya, inconceivable, and as confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita as well as in Bhagavatam. Lord Chaitanya's theory of achintya bheda bheda tattva is the perfect philosophy of the absolute truth.
Hare Krishna, right? So we all know this shlok, right? This mantra, Purnam, Purnamidam, Purnasya, right? Purnamadaya, Madaya is subtract. You subtract Purna from Purna. What is remaining? Purnamadaya, Purnamevaya, Vashishyate. Vashishyate is the remainder. So from the complete, you take out the complete, you still have the complete remaining. That is what? That is Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Let's do one more shlok. Rinaji.
स्वधिष्णयं प्रतपन् प्राणो बहिश्च प्रतपत्यसो एवं विराजं प्रतपन्स्तपत्यन्तर्बहिः पुमान्. The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his universal form, maintains everything in the creation both internally and externally. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? So both internally and externally. And what does that mean? We'll read that, right? But he said, Evam Virajam, is that the Virat Sharup? It maintains both antar bahiha puman, like so internally and as well as externally, right? And again, I think let's read this purport. Those purports are very important, I think, so we cannot miss those, right? It gives a great message. So we'll selectively read the purports, right? Where it's important. Soham? Soham is connecting. Shivam, can you read?
Yeah, I think his Wi-Fi is not working, but okay. The universal form of the Lord, or the impersonal feature of the Lord known as Brahma Jyoti, is clearly explained here and compared to the radiation of the sun. The sunshine may expand all over the universe, but the source of sunshine, namely the sun planet or the deity known as Surya Narayan, is the basis of such radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, is the basis of impersonal Brahma Jyoti radiation, or the impersonal feature of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, right? So the same thing, right? The sun, the kiran, the rays are from the sun, right? So all the rays are dependent on the sun, but we don't have to say that sun is in the rays, right? The rays are from the sun, right? And yeah, Soham, I think this thing is working now.
This is confirmed in the Bhagavad-Gita 14.27. So the universal form of the Lord is the secondary imagination of the impersonal form of the Lord. But the primary form of the Lord is Masundra, with two hands playing on his eternal flute. 75% of the expansive radiation of the Lord is manifested in the spiritual sky. Tripad Vibhuti, and 25% of his personal radiation comprehends the entire expansion of the material universes. This is also explained and stated in the Bhagavad-Gita 10.42. Thus, the 75% expansion of his radiation is called his eternal energy. Hare Krishna.
Eternal energy, right? So these are all spiritual science, and that's why we are reading this purport, right? A lot of information is given here. One is that, so we are seeing this Virat Swarup. We of course saw the universal form in the Bhagavad-Gita that Lord Krishna shows it to Arjuna, right? And the most important fact mentioned here is 25% only is the entire expansion of the material universes. So our universe and then all this innumerable number of universes are just 25% of the personal radiation of Lord Sri Krishna. The internal energy is 75%. And so let's continue this, Anilji.
The living entities who are residents of the spiritual as well as the material expansions are his marginal energy, Tat Sat Shakti, and they are at liberty to live in either of the energies, external or internal. Those who live within the spiritual expansion of the Lord are called liberated souls, whereas the residents of the external expansion are called the conditioned souls. We can just make an estimate of the number of the residents of the internal expansions in comparison with number of residents in the external energy, and may easily conclude that the liberated souls are far more numerous than the conditioned souls. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? So, so we have some hope because the liberated souls are far more than conditioned souls. So it is not that just like, everybody is just conditioned soul, and that's 75% of the energy. So we are going to pause here since we only have 2 minutes. We'll again touch base on this tomorrow. And Prabhuji, if you also want to touch base on this tomorrow, we can a little bit. But since you only have 1 minute, let's continue our Hare Krishna Kirtan, because that's the most important thing, right? We have always been reading the devotional service. That is the chanting and reading the Bhagavad-Gita and the Srimad Bhagvatam is the most important aspect of the whole thing, right? That is the highest perfection. So let's read this and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay? Hare Krishna.